On your screen right now is a hard official question from the Data Insights section. To be precise, this is two-part analysis. This is the given information, and this here is the rest of it where they really ask you a question. There is a statement with two blanks that we need to fill, and this is the table from which we're going to get the answers to those blanks. But I'll come here later on what really is being asked. First, I'm going to focus on just what is given, okay? And this is something which you have to always do. Only focus on what's given first, then think about the rest of it. And even in here, think about one line at a time. Assimilate information as you go. Do not scare yourself with too much data at once. I'm going to show you just how we absorb everything. But before we do that, just to give you some numbers, this hard question is at the 655 plus level. So you can understand why a lot of people would get this wrong. Okay, let's dive right into the given information. Let's read. Today, a certain cinema multiplex has exactly two showings. It's an early showing and a late showing. So they've told you what those showings are called. And this is for what? For each of, again, for each of 5 films. And then they've named it A, B, C. Now, I won't read further till I understand this. What's happening here really? Think, there is this early and late for each of the films. What that means is, if I talk about just film A, there is an early showing and there is a late showing. Obviously, the one that starts early is the early showing, is what I'm assuming here. So that way you see, you have the same thing for all of the 5 films. Film B, for example, the early showing, there's this time maybe when they start. We're going to read further, and this is maybe when the late starts. Let's find more out since I've now understood one movie, 2 showings, right? So in total, there are 10 showings here that I'm talking about. Let's read further. Okay. Now, all of these showings occur after noon, and each showing consists of the film only, with no previews, announcements, advertisements. We'll see why this information is relevant. Basically, what they're saying is every time that I talk about a showing, I'm not talking about any trailers or any ads that go in. I am talking about really the film. Okay, so let's see. The following gives two things. Let's read this nicely. One, the duration of each film and the start time for each showing. Let's understand this. I'm never going to just jump and go to the next part and next part until I completely understand this. The best way to do that is take an example. Read at least one data point completely so that you feel confident. Okay, I know exactly how things are given. Okay, so let's see. For film A, it says the duration is given. Clearly, this is the duration. It's the 90-minute film. Now I understand why they talked about this part. So 90 minutes is really film A. There's nothing else in that. And it also gives you the start time for each showing, which means this 3:45 is when the early showing starts for film A, and 5:30 is when the late showing starts. And of course, each showing will go on for 90 minutes because that is the duration. So actually, they've given me the start time, but I know I can also find the end time for any showing because I know the duration, right? Okay, so with this, I've understood everything that's there here. 5 films, 2 showings for every film. When does it start? When does it end? I can find that because I have the duration. Now that I've completely understood this, I'm not going to put in more energy because I'll see what the question is even asking, right? So we'll go now and see what is being asked. So let's go to the second part here. Okay, let's read. This is the early showing of film 1 overlaps with at least part of both showings of film 2. I know films are not really called 1, 2 here in our question. We know that the names used were actually A through E. That's why A through E are the choices from which you have to see which one can fill in the first blank, the first film we're talking about, and which one out of these can fill in the second blank, which one can be the second film, right? Now, which one works here, which one works there? What do I need? I need to understand this information. So let's see. Let's again read this properly. The early showing is all I'm talking about for the first film. Now, early showing, I have a lot of information in the question. I know the start time, if I call that S. I know that. And I also know the duration for which each film runs, right? Which means I can actually see that if I talk about an early showing of any movie, then I can find out both these things. Start time given, duration given, which means I can find the end time. We've already talked about this. Now I want this early showing to overlap with something. That's what the question here says, overlap with something. Now the second showing, overlap, what does it all mean? I'll try to visualize this. So I want to see both showings of the second film. Suppose I talk about the early showing first. Suppose the early showing starts somewhere here, okay, for the second film. I'm just going to call this early and the second film. This starts here and maybe ends here. Then there is definite overlap. In fact, the entire early showing of the second film is within the showing of the first film. So early overlap is there. But I don't want just that. I want both showings to overlap. What that means is that now maybe as the late showing starts, say somewhere here, this is late for the second film, even this should have an overlap. So look at this, you see a clear overlap in this section, right? This is the situation I want. I want just the early of the first film to overlap with early and late of the second film. This clarity on what I want is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, even when I have all of those numbers, the duration, the start time, you will not know what to do. Now I'll take this to the question where I had all the given information, and we'll find which films these are. So here we have everything we got from our understanding of the question stem, and this is where all of the given information. Now, how can I do this? One option I have is that I can check for each of these one by one. I can think that, okay, what if film A is the first film? What if film B is the first film? And then check this for all 5 options. But that could be a bit lengthy. So I should try to understand what's really happening here and see if there's a faster way to get to the films. Now, look, here I have early starting at 3:45, then this goes on for 1.5 hours. Definitely it finishes before 5:30, right? So early and late showings, they don't overlap, at least for the first film. You'll notice the same thing for the others also. The gap between early and late, that start time gap, it is more than the duration that the film goes on for. So first thing I know is that early and late, they don't have an overlap for any single film, which means this representation I have, early ended here and then late started here, this representation is good. There is no overlap. Now, it is easy for any film to overlap with the early show, but it's harder for it to overlap with the later show, because that starts later and there's this risk of the early show of the first film being done before the late show begins. That's why I'm not going to worry about early matching with early. I'm going to worry about someone's early being an intersection with someone else's late show. So keep an eye on that. Now let's see. Suppose film A is what I'm checking for the first film. I'm putting that in that place and seeing if something works. Film A starting at 3:45, ending in 1.5 hours, that ends at 5:15. I'm only going to see if that 5:15 matches any other film's late show. But it doesn't. All of them start after 5:15, which means film A is not the first film. Just writing one cross that it's not the first film. Then similarly, check the second one. Starts at 1:30, ending in 100 minutes, which is less than 2 hours, right? So it'll end before 3:30. Do you have any late show which starts before 3:30? No, you don't. What that means is even film B cannot be the first film. Nice, easy. Try this on your own also. Film C starts at 2, goes on for less than 2 hours again, so it'll end before 4 for sure, and all of these are after 4. no overlap. I'm not even using exact duration. I'm not even actually calculating the end time because my data is helping me already make eliminations, right? Just estimates are helping me. If I look at the D film here, then this is very close to 2 hours, 120 minutes. So it'll end very close to 6:55 to be precise. Is there any late show that starts before that? Yep, there is this one also, there is this one also before 6:55. So film D is one which is overlapping for sure with some late shows. So I'm going to keep film D. You can similarly check for E, but you're going to find the same. This will end somewhere close to 2:15 and no show begins till then. So I already have my answer for the first blank. So I'm going to go and mark just this much first. Let's go to our table and here we go. So I now know that my first film is film D. And I'm going to mark this here this way. Look, I'm going to mark the D row for the first column. With that, your first column is done. Now I just want to find what this second film is. And it's easier this way because you've made some progress already, right? So what you now want is that if this is film D going on from some time to some other time, which other movie does it overlap with? Okay, so I'll go back and let's see how I can use that information. And we are back. Okay, let's see. So now that I know it's film D, it's not too much work if I actually write the duration, right? So say film D, which I know starts at 5, the early show. So this is 5 p.m. and it goes on for 115 minutes. So 5 minutes less than 2 hours. So this will go on till 6:55 p.m. Now, let's look at the early and the late shows of the other guys. So if this one I see starts at 3:45, it'll start here before the early show, and my only problem will be if it ends before the early show only, right? And also, do I need to check all of them? No, I only need to check the ones where this 6:55 thing definitely cuts with a late show. So if you see this carefully, this 7 p.m. thing is out because it starts after 6:55. 8 p.m. is out, it starts after 6:55, and the others, this one is also out. I have only 2 options left for the second film, so I only have to do that much. This is also very important. You keep eliminating choices. Don't overdo your work and waste your time, okay? So I'm checking right now D as the first film and A as the second one. It surely starts before this one at 3:45. Now remember where it ended, 1.5 hours, that was 5:15. 5:15 is somewhere here. That means there is definite overlap with the early show, at least. Late show, I'd already checked. There is an overlap. That's why it was even there in the choices. I'm not going to go further and check for the other remaining choice. I know already now that film A is in the second blank. That's the second film I want. Let's come back here. Okay, this is film A and we go. So this way, we've filled in both of the columns of this question. Two-part analysis is because of these 2 parts that you had to fill, okay? So let's quickly summarize everything we did. It was a difficult question, yes, but it was not difficult if you really break it down nicely. We understood everything that was given here, every single word in here. Then only we went into what the question was asking. Then before jumping into the data, we first summarized. We made an approach. We decided what are we going to do. And this visualization here really helped us. And then we took this back to the question and then we just eliminated choices as appropriate. We first made some logic out here. Do I need to check every choice? No, because we understood that, the late show is going to help us very quickly narrow down our choices. Once we did that, we had, again, these 3 gone, only A and D to check. Checking A worked anyway. We never came to D. And that's it.